Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and good morning. Let me from the outstart express my deep appreciation and thank for being invited here to this function, and I'm really honored. And I didn't expect to be such a formal affair, but I'm happy to be here all the same, and I hope my humble speech will be of some inspiration. Yang berbahagia Emeritus Professor Dato Insinyur Dr. Muhammad Azrai Kasim, Vice Chancellor of UiTM. Yang berbahagia Dr. Haji Muhammad Kamal Haji Harun, Deputy Vice Chancellor Academics and International. Yang berbahagia Professor Dr. Haji Ruslan Abdul Rahim, Dean of Faculty of Arts and Design. Yang berbahagia Dr. Hajah Zainab Haji Muhammad Nur, Director of Office of International Affairs. Distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. What is a diplomat? There is a cliche definition widely used that a diplomat is someone sent to another country to lie for his country. I don't subscribe to this. A diplomat is someone sent abroad by his government to promote, increase awareness, defend his country when necessary, and strengthen bilateral ties, and to look after the welfare of Malaysians living in or visiting that country. There may be cases where diplomats have to make excuses for their country's shortcomings, but to regard this as lying is subjective. So, how did I become a diplomat? As early as I can remember, I was a happy and curious child, always wanting to see and know more. I was the youngest of 5 siblings and grew up in Johor Bahru. And in my early school days, television transmission came into existence. I was fond of watching foreign programs, and being in Johor Bahru, we had access to Singapore television with a longer transmission hours and more variety of programs. During my teenage years, this whetted my appetite to know more of the outside world. And during my teenage years, my parents would allow me to go to Singapore, and this became almost a monthly ritual. Singapore was a big city and had an international character. My frequent visits further whetted my appetite to see the world, and my ambition grew. And as fate would have it, one of my uncles was posted to Jeddah and London as a diplomat in the mid-60s and later became ambassador to Iraq. And around the same time, an elder brother of mine, are you here today? No, he's not here. He promised to come, but he's not here. An elder brother of mine was Arfan. Oh, yes, there he is. An elder brother of mine, he's there, also went to work in Frankfurt, Germany, at our FIMA office there. This inspired me even further to go overseas. I studied at University of Malaysia under the Johor State Scholarship and was supposed to serve the Johor government after graduating. Well, I did only for 4 months and left despite the notice and warning about the terms and conditions of my scholarship. I simply did not want to stay in Johor and be an assistant district officer posted from one district to another while there was a whole world out there for me to explore. So, against all odds and warning, I left Johor Bahru and went back to KL and worked part-time at Radio and Television Malaysia as assistant producer while waiting for the result of my interview to join the federal government service, which would open the door for me to join the foreign service. And for the record, for my brother's record, he gave me a stern lecture about leaving Johor Bahru, a good post, and leaving our parents behind. He said, you had the perfect job, you could be here with our parents, and you are selfish, and you went off to Kuala Lumpur. But anyway, that is fate. Yeah? Anyway, Alhamdulillah, I was successful in the interview, and thus joined the PTD or the Perkhidmatan Tadbir and Diplomatic. A year later, after finishing my compulsory service training and examination at our Institute Tadbir Negara or Intan, I was assigned to the Foreign Service. And a year later, I was selected to go to Oxford University for a one-year program in diplomacy and foreign relations. Apart from a two-week students exchange program with Chulalongkorn University in Thailand during my university days, this was another welcome occasion for me to go abroad, and I was very excited. There were 24 of us diplomats in the making from various countries in the program, which guided us on the final aspect of being a diplomat and how to execute our role, as well as updating us on international issues. We were taken on several tours, including to the British Parliament, the United Nations headquarters in Geneva, and many capitals in Europe like Bonn, Paris, and Brussels. One memorable classmate in the program was Benazir Bhutto, the daughter of the then Prime Minister of Pakistan, who later became the Prime Minister of Pakistan herself, but with a tragic ending. She was, in fact, in my tutorial group of 6 people. Just for, as a recollection, you know, she is very active, very talkative, has always an opinion, always has something to say. So sometimes in the tutorial class, the rest of us who were not prepared for the subject matter will just keep quiet and let her do all the talking, you know. So that was Benazir Bhutto. Anyway, my time in Oxford was also a personal education for me in classical music. I returned to Malaysia in July 1977, and henceforth, my career in the Foreign Service actually began. In total, I served 34 years from 1975 to 2010, which included 3 years contract after my compulsory retirement at the age of 56 in 2007. I served abroad in 6 countries, plus a couple of short assignments in the US, and in total spent 22 years abroad. For a small country, Malaysia had many diplomatic as well as commercial representations abroad in the form of embassy or high commissions in Commonwealth countries and consulate, trade and tourism office. Our assignment abroad was unofficially classified as hardship or non-hardship. Hardship is when you are sent to a poor or undeveloped or to a communist country. Usually, a first posting, or referred to sometimes as a baptism posting, is to a hardship post. Mine was to Hanoi, Vietnam, where our embassy had just opened a few years before, after the country was liberated and united after successfully chasing the Americans out. Sorry, Karim. We have an American here with us. I actually pleaded to be reconsidered to another post because I knew what Hanoi and Vietnam was like, having accompanied an official delegation a few months earlier to the country to offer the country assistance in the rubber planting technology as a gesture of friendship to the newly united country. My plea was consoled with a promise that I was going to Hanoi only for 1 year, after which I would be directly posted to Vienna, Austria. Hanoi was indeed a difficult post. The country was so poor and totally lacked most amenities and basic necessities, including food, which we had to bring from Hong Kong on a regular basis. Under the socialist regime, we diplomats were closely monitored and our movements restricted to 10 kilometers radius of the city. I cannot pick up the phone and speak on the phone without knowing that somebody's listening to me or recording me. Anyway, diplomatic life there was unlike any other capital. Diplomatic life there was unlike at any other capital, which made the diplomatic corps very closely knit, though rather divided. One group from countries of the free world and the other from the socialist communist regime. My 1-year posting was extended to 18 months, 13 days, and 13 hours. And this precise record of my stay reflected how I felt being in Hanoi. But overall, it was a very good and educational first posting for me. The promise of Vienna did not materialize since I exceeded the 1 year. Since I exceeded the 1 year in Hanoi, I was instead posted to Rome, Italy. My first reaction was not very enthusiastic, as I had actually 6 months before that spent a week in Rome on holiday as a relief break from Hanoi. But Rome turned out to be an exciting and busy post for me, and I was there for almost 4.5 years, from 1981 to 1985. Relations between Italy and Malaysia were good. We had our embassy and the office to the Food and Agriculture Organization, or the FAO, in Rome, and our Trade and Tourism office in Milan. Italy was also a favorite destination for many Malaysian VIPs, cabinet ministers, and royalties for holidays and shopping. There were always visitors from Malaysia throughout the year. And during my term, the Agong came twice on holiday, and once even with his polo team to play with the royal polo team counterpart in Rome. PM Dr. Mahathir came for an official visit, and then followed by a 1-week holiday. Datuk Mus Hitam loved to come to Rome to escape from all the vagaries of KL, and then if I recall correctly, during my term there, 13 cabinet ministers, 9 deputy ministers, and 6 sultans, no less, came to have holidays in Rome. So, Rome fortified my confidence as a diplomat. I had 3 ambassadors in the 52 months I was there, 2 of whom were retirees. I was given much of the responsibility of running the embassy and represented them at the officials and diplomatic events. Work aside, living in Rome and Italy with its rich history, culture, cuisine, fashion, and good climate was, as the Italian saying goes, a la dolce vita, the good life, the sweet life. Anyway, after Rome, I was back in the ministry for another 3 years before being posted to Poland, another hardship post, being a socialist country of the communist regime of Eastern Europe. It was a long posting, 4 years and 4 months. We were also accredited to Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and East Germany from there. The hardship aside, Poland was an interesting post and provided me with further knowledge into the art and Western classical music. My travels to the accredited capitals, Prague, Budapest, and East Berlin, provided me with more experience and knowledge about Eastern Europe. And I was in Poland during a most historical time. 2 years after my arrival, socialism and communism ended in Eastern Europe. The Iron Curtain came down, and the Berlin Wall came crashing down. The Berlin Wall, the iconic symbol of the divided East Germany, came crashing down. The period and events leading to this was quite dramatic and difficult, and the aftermath was even more difficult as Poland and the other countries grapple to adjust from being countries ruled with iron fist and authority into a free country. The economy was chaotic and everything just went haywire. They even had the word saying that now freedom has become anarchy because everything was out of control for some time in Eastern Europe. Anyway, I had a rather difficult time for over a year since being chargé d'affaires in place of the ambassador who was transferred to another post after Poland's liberation, and there was no immediate replacement. But looking back now, I actually had very many interesting experiences in Poland and the accredited country. After Poland, I was back again in the ministry for just over 2 years before being posted to Canberra, Australia. Australia was an easy and comfortable post. Everything works. Services were good, and things were generally of high standard. And one of the best things is that it's language, like English speaking, so you have no problem communicating. Yeah. There were many Malaysians living in Australia as well, and Australia-Malaysia relations had always been good and went back a long way. The only incident, negative incident while I was there, was a tiff or quarrel between Prime Minister Paul Keating and Dr. Mahathir over the former calling him recalcitrant. Actually, it was a no issue. In Australia, they called each other name. They use four-letter word. You know, they even throw kaudang in front of the parliament, things like that. But I think this whole recalcitrant issue was actually started by UMNO youth. They were the one who provoked Mahathir to respond. Actually, being called a recalcitrant is nothing to the Australia. So anyway, that's how Australian culture is. After Australia, I was back again in the ministry for 3 years, during which I had the challenging but memorable task of organizing 2 big international conferences, the 30th and ASEAN Anniversary Meeting of Foreign Ministers and the ASEAN Summit. I actually enjoyed this task and in the process had many opportunities to travel to ASEAN and other countries. Then, the big thing, then came my first ambassadorial posting to Lima, Peru, which is quite out of the usual. Yeah? While some people in the ministry view Lima as a hardship and dangerous post, I actually welcome it as I had never been to South America, and this opened the door for me. I was also accredited to Bolivia and Colombia from Peru. Peru, like some other Latin American countries, was notorious for having underground so-called liberation movements and was famous for its Tupac Amaru or the Shining Path group. My predecessor, Allahyarham Datuk Mokhtar Salat, had the misfortune of being one of the hostages or captive during the seize or hijack of the Japanese ambassador's residence during a reception attended by hundreds of guests. The hostages were held over for over 100 days in the confine of the Japanese residence. Can you imagine 100 over people for 100 days living in that, being confined to that space? Anyway, Dr. Mokhtar was fortunately released only after 11 days only. And this was because of the successful negotiation with the captive by the Peruvian authority, together with our official delegation led by our foreign minister. You have to say that our government really took action immediately. When this happened, they sent a delegation led by the foreign minister to go and persuade the Peruvian authority to approach the hostages to the please release. We have nothing to do with you. What did we do to you? Why are you taking our ambassador as hostage? Anyway, it was a successful negotiation, and Mokhtar was released after 11 days. Dr. Mokhtar had just arrived in Lima a few weeks before that to set up the embassy, and he was still staying in the hotel while in the process of setting up the embassy and residence. After his release, the instruction from PM was that he can come back. He was given the option to come back, to return to Malaysia, and be reassigned to another post because of the traumatic incident he went through. Yeah, but he gallantly stayed on and completed the 3-year term and paved my easy takeover of the embassy in 1999. This was a very big face-saving gesture for the Peruvian government, and even acknowledged by President Fujimori himself, because many of the other ambassadors and diplomats who were held hostage simply left Peru in half and in anger and frustration after being released from captivity. So that is an interesting story. Peru Colombia and Bolivia were indeed interesting assignment for me and a wonderful discovery of Latin America. But fortunately, by the time I came to Peru, the shining path had been crippled by the authority and its leader imprisoned. But security was very tight, and I had a 24-hour armed guard at my residence and at the embassy during office hour. And I was always being accompanied by somebody, an official guard, which in a way, a bit of annoyance for me. So after about 3-4 months, I said, oh, go away, let me do my own things. But the advantage is that I look like a Latino. If I walk in the street and I don't open my mouth, don't speak language, everybody will think that I'm one of them. So I had no problem. I can go wherever I want. Sometimes I said, tell the driver, go away, let me drive my own car. Yeah. So that's interesting, you know. Anyway, my term in Peru, and another highlight of, another highlight of my term in Peru was my 4-month temporary assignment to the United Nations in New York for its 55th General Assembly and Millennium Summit. My term in Peru was actually short of its normal period, as when I was asked to return to the ministry to head the organizing secretariat of the 10th Annual Conference of the 56-member Islamic countries, or the OIC. My track record for organizing the 2 ASEAN meetings must have been the factor for being chosen to do the task, this big task. And I pleaded against it, but I was told to come back and do the job. Anyway, but my term was delayed. Just days before my departure home, I had 2 heart attacks followed by a bypass surgery and had to recuperate for 3 months before allowed to go home. I came back to a huge task and responsibility and had exactly 1 year to organize the conference with a budget of 110 million, 18 committees under me who were waiting for 3 months, and then also to see to the construction and the completion of the multi-million ringgit Putrajaya Convention Center in time for the conference in October 2003. We have more visitors? Okay. Anyway, the first 6 months of at the job was especially difficult for me. I was still traumatized by the heart attack and surgery, and I frequently suffered from anxiety and panic attacks. I think my brother would know that, and a few of my friends. Hamida, you know that I've, in the middle of it, you know, after going through that what I did, I don't know, it's just sometimes out of control, maybe in the medication or just the trauma. I sometimes get panic attack, or what you call it, the deep hole, the black hole syndrome, that I need to, you know, to get over. Anyway, sorry. But I was determined to fulfill the big task given to me. And Alhamdulillah, with God's grace, the summit went well, and some countries of the OIC even proclaimed that it was one of the best OIC summit ever organized. By then, I was just 3 years to my retirement and had made up my mind I would not mind not going for another posting abroad. I was given a rather light desk job at the ministry after that, and was even given a 3 months sabbatical at the Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies in Honolulu, Hawaii, a sort of a reward for my successful delivery of the summit. And then, after that was over, I was offered to be High Commissioner to Brunei, which I steadfastly refused, turned down. I told the big boss I did not mind not going abroad again on a posting, but I was calmly advised that I should go abroad again before my retirement to ensure I will be contracted after my retirement. If I retired at home, I will not be offered a contract for the extension of my service. Well, knowing big-headed me, knowing I had a sort of bargaining power after having successfully delivered the OIC summit, I responded that I would only go out again if I was sent to Europe and, if possible, to Switzerland. Sok kepala, Anyway, indeed, I was assigned to Europe, but to Athens, Greece, to set up the embassy there. We don't have an embassy in Athens, so it was about time they wanted to have an embassy in Athens. I said, okay, YUSOF, you go to Athens and set up an embassy. I vehemently protested and reasoned out that it was really unfair to send a retiring ambassador. I had just 3 years more. Over just 1 year, 2 years more. How can you send me to Athens? I had to start from zero, start looking for office, start looking for house, start recruiting staff, negotiating with the government. I said, no, I said, it's only fair you send a younger ambassador instead of me. But I was told the decision has been made. Our minister and the PM has agreed. The paper has been signed. A budget had been put aside, and my initial team has been identified. So you go, YUSOF. Anyway, me being me, I actually made a quick trip to Athens. I checked out, no, I have to see this place for myself again. I made a quick trip to Athens to inspect and gauge the place. I actually had been to Athens before on holiday, but when you're on holiday and when you're living there, it's two different things, you see. So I went for a quick trip to Athens, and to see if it has improved over the years, and especially since Athens has just hosted the Olympic Games. Anyway, the visit convinced me I did not want to be posted to Athens and would accept any consequences and repercussion from my refusal to go. So when I made my refusal known again, the big question was asked again by my big boss. So where do you want to go? I said, well, Switzerland. So I told straightforward, Switzerland or nothing. Anyway, in the end, I was informed I could go to Switzerland after all. And Alhamdulillah, this was indeed the icing on the cake of my diplomatic career. And I always tell my young officers and any young people, you must know and say what you want. And if you have a strong case, stick by it, The worst thing that could happen is that you don't get what you want, but at least you have made your wish known, yeah? Anyway, Switzerland was a very comfortable and very easy post. The country was beautiful, very safe, and had one of the highest standards of living in the world. My work was easy, and relations between the two countries were good. The highlight of my term there was the annual World Economic Forum in Davos, which our PM attended twice every year. A year after arriving in Switzerland, I reached my compulsory retirement age of 56, and as promised, I was contracted for another 3 years, making my term in Switzerland exactly 4 years, Alhamdulillah. In conclusion, let me say that I am most grateful for my life as a diplomat. It was the right and meaningful career choice for me. I am confident I had done my best to represent my king and country abroad in various circumstances. I met many people of various levels and witnessed and experienced many interesting, important, and historical events. I picked up languages and made friends. It was also a very maturing and educational life. Beside the demands of work, I was able to avail myself to various cultures and arts of the countries I lived in and traveled to. And being in 6 different countries offered me the opportunity to visit many other surrounding countries as well. For those of you young people who have the inclination to join the Foreign Service and be a diplomat, there are some things you should know. The word diplomat may conjure the vision of grandeur, receptions, dinner parties, and exotic places. But in order to negotiate the unwieldy terrains of diplomatic life, certain skills and competences are required. During my time, we learn things the hard way through mistakes, examples, and experience. I was most grateful to have that one-year program in Oxford, which gave me a good start. Today, we have an established institution to train our young diplomats at home, the Institute of Diplomacy and Foreign Relations, which also train guest countries, diplomats from other countries. And this is something, again, a good start for diplomats to be. Some of the essential skills and abilities required, and you may call them the 21st century skill for a diplomat today are, critical thinking, leadership skill, decision-making, problem-solving skill, teamwork and collaboration. These last three, I'm sure many of you would have read about how our embassies and diplomats had to work hard and put a lot of effort to provide or to protect and evacuate our nationals abroad at times of emergency or when a war broke down in that country, and recently during the COVID-19 pandemics. And then the others are negotiation skill, digital and media literacy, adaptability to new and different environment, and most of all, the ability to communicate well and to write well, as you will be required to write reports quite frequently. And the ability to learn new languages will be a bonus. Finally, my fulfilling diplomatic life also gave me the added bonus of pursuing my passion for travel, art, and music. Over the years, I have collected many art books and posters from some countries I have been to, including paintings. It is now my honor and pleasure to share this with the students of UiTM, especially of the Art and Design faculty. I hope they will be a good source of reference and inspiration to the students. I particularly choose to present the book to UiTM since it is on record that the institution has produced some of the finest and successful artists in the country, and I'm sure will continue to do so. Thank you for listening to my humble presentation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.